Okay, welcome everybody. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good midnight, whatever time you're watching this. I hope it's not midnight, but listen, if you can't sleep and you want to learn some Torah, please do. Um, Thank you for watching this recording. God willing, next week we will resume our live classes. I'm once again in this wonderful undisclosed location, underground, overground, wherever it might be. Let's start off with some charity, as usual. So if you have a charity box, put a coin or a bill in the charity box. If you have an app or your banking app, you can do like that. This. Okay, perfect. And if you'd like to sponsor this week's or another week's class coming up in the future, whether the near or far distant future, please reach out to me at rabbi@jewisherie.com or give me a call and leave a message. If I don't answer, 814-315-1344. If you would like the curriculum for tonight's class, please give me an email. I will send you a PDF copy. Last but not least, if you have any questions, please reach out via email, preferably. Okay. This is a very, very interesting class. I know all the classes are very interesting. I say it about each one, but this one is uniquely interesting in its own unique way. The formative years. Elisha rebelled against God, but Rabbi Meir continued to study from him. How is this possible? A fascinating story with a critical lesson about children's education. Okay. As a short introduction, Elisha ben Avuya, which means in Hebrew, it's Hebrew, but in English it means Elisha, the son of Avuya, was one of the great Tanaic sages. Tanaic means he relived around the time of the Second Temple era, the time of the Mishnah. Despite the fact that he left the path of Torah and Judaism, we can still learn an important lesson from him about providing a good Jewish education to our children. Let's see how. This is today's class is based on a sicha, based on a talk of the Lubavitcher Rebbe from the springtime of 1982. Section A in your booklet is page 3. The story of Elisha ben Avuya. So this week's Torah reading teaches us the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird. What does this have to do with somebody named Elisha ben Avuya? We will see momentarily. But first, the mitzvah. Source 1, Deuteronomy chapter 22. If you chance upon a bird's nest on the road, on any tree or on the ground, and it contains fledglings, which is fancy English for baby birds, or eggs, if the mother is sitting upon the fledglings or upon the eggs, you shall not take the mother while she is on the young. You shall send her away the mother, and then you may take the young for yourself. Do this so that it should be good for you, and you should lengthen your days. So the mitzvah of sending the mother bird away applies to one who comes across a bird's nest and wishes to take the young or the eggs. The Torah commands us not to take them before sending the mother bird away. The reward for doing this mitzvah is, quote, that it should be good for you and you should lengthen your days. Pretty fantastic. One of the reasons given for this mitzvah is to teach us compassion. Do not take the young in front of their mother's eyes. First, send her away. Our class this week will revolve around this mitzvah and one of the sages, Elisha ben Avuya, who strayed from the Torah path as a result of something that occurred in connection with this mitzvah. First, a little background about this sage. The Tanaic sage Elisha ben Avuya lived in the third generation of the Tanaic era, immediately after the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem. He was a student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and then of Rabbi Akiva. He left the study hall and strayed from the Torah path, gaining the moniker, the nickname, Acher, or other. He wasn't the same holy sage Elisha ben Avuya anymore. He was just called Acher, other. As Acher, he befriended the Roman rulers of the land and did their bidding. He would enter Jewish schools and disrupt children from learning Torah. He would turn to the children saying, "You're going to be a carpenter, you're going to be a builder, you're going to be a tailor." Under his influence, children began abandoning Torah study and turning to work instead. Another story describes how, together with Roman soldiers, he forced Jews to violate the Shabbat laws. and carry items from one domain to another, which is an action prohibited on Shabbat. When the Jews began to outsmart them by carrying the loads in pairs instead of single-handedly, they did it in pairs, which lessens the severity of the prohibition. Not discussion for now. Acher would draw this to the soldiers' attention, and they would put a stop to it. So the question is, this was a holy sage. What happened to him? Actually, we'll see in the next source over here, source 2, how holy of a sage he was. But the question is, what happened? Why did he leave? Why did he leave the path of Judaism? Why did he leave the traditions of his fathers and mothers? The Midrash, the Zohar, and Talmudic texts provide several reasons for Acher's leaving the Torah path. One of them is his entering the Pardes, together with other sages, leading him to change the course of his life. A large chunk of today's class is going to be quoting from the tractate Talmud, the Talmudic tractate of Chagiga, page 14, because a lot of that page discusses Elisha ben Avuya. So let's see source 2, page 3. The sages taught, this is a very, very famous story. 4 entered the Pardes, the orchard, meaning they delved into the deepest secrets of the Torah. Who are these 4? Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Acher, and Rabbi Akiva. And these 4 sages, each one had something different happen to them because of this journey, let's call it. Ben Azai glanced at the Shekhinah, at the divine presence, and died. The verse, precious in the eyes of the Lord is the death of his pious ones, applies to him. Ben Zoma, what happened to him? He glanced at the Shekhinah and was harmed, meaning he lost his mind. The verse, have you found honey? Eat as much as is sufficient for you, lest you become full from it and vomit it out, applies to him. Acher, Elisha ben Avuya, chopped down the shoots of the saplings, meaning he became a heretic. Rabbi Akiva left in peace. So it wasn't a physical orchard of fruit, fruit trees that the sages entered. This was the orchard of Torah, the deepest secrets of the Torah. They gathered with the aim of delving into the secrets of the Torah, to stroll through the highest divine levels and absorb the sweetness of the light of the Shekhinah. Just like what had once happened to Aaron, the high priest, his sons, they experienced an incredibly powerful surge of divine light, which aroused an uncontrollable desire within them to cleave to the Shekhinah. Each was harmed by this overwhelming experience in their own way, save for Rabbi Akiva, who left in peace. And the sages actually tell us what was different about him that he left in peace. Simple. He went in peacefully, therefore he left peacefully. Again, not a discussion for now. The Jerusalem Talmud, when we refer to the Talmud, generally we are referring to the Babylonian Talmud. There were 2 Talmuds composed by the sages of the time of the Talmud. There's the Babylonian Talmud and the Jerusalem Talmud. The Jerusalem Talmud is obviously authored in the land of Israel. The Jerusalem Talmud gives another reason for Acher's heresy. Acher witnessed a scene that planted doubt in his mind about the veracity, the truth of the Torah, and the existence of reward and punishment. Source 3, Jerusalem Talmud. This is the story in connection with the Torah portion this week. Elisha ben Avuya was once studying Torah in the Ginosar Valley. He watched a person climb up a palm tree and take a nest in front of the mother bird, which is prohibited. The man descended unharmed. The next day, we're on page 4 now. The next day, he watched another person climb atop the palm tree and chase away the mother bird, as is required by Jewish law, as we just learned, the mitzvah. As he descended, he was fatally bitten by a snake. He said, "It is written, send away the mother, and then you may take the young for yourself, in order that it should be good for you." And how does the verse end off? And you should lengthen your days. He asked himself, what good did this person gain? How were his days lengthened? Right? So Elisha ben Avuya sees a person fulfill this mitzvah, which comes with the promised word, long life. And the person died a few moments later. Another person violated this commandment and kept on living. Where was this person's reward for long life? This caused a crisis in faith so strong that he left the path of Torah. His question indeed touches one of the fundamentals of Jewish faith, an issue the sages have long grappled with. is reward and punishment applicable? Is it relevant in this world or the next world? Acher expected the reward to be given in this world, thus causing a faith crisis. The Talmud, however, teaches that reward is given primarily in the next world, the world to come. Thus, when the Torah promises the reward of long life, it means a long life in the world to come. Why is reward and consequence applied primarily in the next world? The simple answer is that here we live in a materialistic physical world where the great spiritual reward cannot be appreciated. Not only can it not be appreciated fully, it can't be appreciated at all. Only in the world to come can the real reward be received. Okay, consuming the good, discarding the bad. The Talmud relates that even after Acher strayed, Rabbi Meir, who was one of his students, continued studying Torah from him. This is quite interesting. Let's see it inside. Source 4. Continuing on in Tractate Chagiga, page 15. After Acher had strayed, he asked Rabbi Meir, "What is the meaning of the verse? Neither gold nor glass can equal it, nor is the pure golden vessel its exchange." Rabbi Meir answered, "This is the Torah, which is as difficult to acquire as gold and as easy to lose as glass." Acher responded, "Your teacher Rabbi Akiva said differently, said otherwise. He taught that gold and glass can be fixed if shattered, and so too can a rogue Torah sage be rehabilitated." So Acher asked his student, Rabbi Meir, to interpret a verse in the book of Job. Neither gold nor glass can equal it, nor is a pure golden vessel its exchange. Rabbi Meir explained that the verse is referring to the Torah. The parallel between Torah and gold and glass is that Torah is as difficult to acquire as gold, that it requires much effort to understand, to fully grasp. On the other hand, like glass, it's very easy to lose. Torah study can be quickly forgotten without constant review. I like to plug things, you know that. Plug. Don't learn Torah once. If you learn something, review it, review it, review it. It says that the sages of the Talmud, they not the sages, the Jews of the time of the Talmud, it was very normal for them to learn something literally 100 times. And somebody pushed themselves past 100, they went to 101 times, that was wow. But before 101, it was normal. Everyone review things 100 times. You need to know, you need to remember. How do you, that's the best to remember? You push yourself past your comfort zone, and you review it again and again and again. Acher retorted that his teacher, Rabbi Akiva, interpreted the verse very differently. It isn't referring... One moment. I'm going to pause this for just a moment. Sorry about the pause. Going further. So he said that the verse is not referring to Torah, but to a Torah scholar, that just like glass and gold can be repaired if they break, so too can a, let's call it broken Torah scholar, be really rehabilitated and repent. And we'll see a story where this idea kind of comes to life, is illustrated. It's a very short story, but it's a very interesting story. Source 5. Acher was once riding a horse on Shabbat, and Rabbi Meir was following him, desiring to learn Torah from him. Acher told him, "Meir, turn around, for I have measured, and here is the limit of how far you can walk on Shabbat." Just to elaborate a couple things. It is forbidden to ride an animal on Shabbat. It is also a problem to leave a, what's the word I'm looking for? A place of dwelling, a city, a certain walking distance out of said city on Shabbos, on Shabbat. Walking past that limit is a prohibition. So Acher is riding on a horse on Shabbat. Rabbi Meir is walking alongside him because he's not going to ride a horse on Shabbat. Why is he walking with him? He wants to learn Torah from him. It's a little strange. The guy is desecrating the Torah publicly on Shabbat, and he wants to learn Torah from him. We'll learn about this. And Acher tells him, "Stop! I have measured. I was paying attention, and I know that this is the limit, that you can't walk any further." I'm, he's basically implying I'll walk further, but I'm telling you, you need to stop. before we read the Rebbe's piece on this, the Talmud wonders how is it that Rabbi Meir is allowed to learn Torah from Acher. One second, this might actually be addressed later in the class. Don't want to say things too early or too soon. Don't want to give you. Yeah, we'll do it. Okay, I'll mention it later. Okay. The Rebbe, Elisha's stature, page 5. Prior to Elisha straying from the path and becoming Acher, he was a person of very high spiritual stature, as is evident from the fact that he was one of the people who entered the party. So there's only 4 of them. Even after he strayed and became Acher, the Talmud relates that he taught Rabbi Meir Torah, when he explained the verse from Job to him, according to the explanation of Rabbi Akiva. The Talmud also relates a story about Rabbi Meir and Acher's Torah discussion while Acher was riding a horse on Shabbat. 2 details stand out in the story. A, even though Acher was riding a horse on Shabbat, Rabbi Meir was following in order to learn Torah from him and move. Moreover, B, Acher cautioned Rabbi Meir about going beyond the permitted distance on Shabbat, even though this prohibition is only of rabbinic origin. This shows the high standing of Elisha ben Avuya, that even after straying from the path, he taught Torah to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir was a scholar who illuminated his colleagues' eyes in matter of halacha, of Jewish law, and he was so learned that his colleagues were not able to fully comprehend him. Rabbi Meir was arguably one of, or even thought, the greatest Torah sage, the greatest, wisest man of his time. Interestingly enough, when there's debates amongst the sages of how to rule in Jewish law, a lot of the time the law is not ruled according to Rabbi Meir. Why is this so? Very interesting reason. Because he was so deep, because his wisdom was so beyond comprehension to the other sages, they couldn't understand his opinion. They couldn't fathom, how do you rule like this? He had his reasoning, but they couldn't understand it. And Torah, 2 things. Torah rules follow the majority when it comes to these kind of things, on ruling on Jewish law, and also it needs to be understood. It's not just people just come up with a feeling and says, I think this should be okay, or I think this should be, we should put a stop to this. We don't do things based on feelings. There's an understanding based on the principles of how Torah is codified. Being that they could not understand him, many times they did not rule according to him, even though he was incredibly loftier than them in intellect. So this raises the question, where did Acher draw his power from? Why is a person who broke so sharply and painfully from Torah observance still teaching Torah to the greatest scholar of the generation, Rabbi Meir? Section B. What was his secret? Page 6. Says the Rebbe, youthful Torah study. We can understand the reason for this based on a teaching of Elisha ben Avuya himself. Yes, even though Elisha ben Avuya strayed from the path of Torah, but earlier in his life, he was, like we said, he was a holy sage. And many of his, some number of his teachings are incorporated into the Mishnah text till this very day. So the Mishnah in Ethics of the Fathers, Pirkei Avot, quotes a teaching in the name of Elisha ben Avuya. In this teaching, the Rebbe finds the secret of Acher's life. In this teaching from Elisha, he reflected what was what his identity, really, his character. Source 6, Ethics of the Fathers, chapter 4, Mishnah 20. Elisha ben Avuya said, one who learns Torah in their youth is comparable to ink written on new paper. One who learns Torah in their old age is comparable to ink inscribed on worn paper. Says Bartanura, Rabbi Varda Bartanura, one of the forerunning, is that a word? Foremost? Most important, one of the most famous commentaries on the Mishnah. New paper means that it lasts, just like youthful Torah study is not forgotten. This is his secret. Says the Rebbe, Elisha ben Avuya studied much Torah in his youth. Talmud relates that his father said, since Torah is so great, I will devote this child to Torah study. As a result, the Torah he studied in his youth remained with him eternally, because it was, quote, ink on new paper that lasts. So the commentary of Tosfos recounts what happened at the bris milah of Elisha ben Avuya. Source 7, page 7. Avuya, Elisha's father, was one of the great sages of Jerusalem. On the day of Elisha's bris, however you pronounce it, he called all the dignitaries of Jerusalem to gather in one house, and he gathered the Tanaic sages, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua, in another house. After the distinguished guests ate and drank, they began to dance merrily. The Tanaic sages sitting in the other house said, "While they do their thing, we'll do our thing." They sat and studied Torah. A fire descended from heaven and surrounded them. Avuya, Elisha's father, turned to them and said, "Men, why have you come to burn my house down?" "God forbid," they answered. "We were studying Torah, and it was as joyous as when it was given at Sinai." And wasn't that with fire? "If this is the power of Torah," Avuya said, "if this boy lives," talking to about his 8-day-old son, "I will dedicate his life to Torah." Continues the Rebbe. This underlines the importance of investing in teaching children Torah. This is the lesson of the class for today. It is a biblical mitzvah for a father to teach his child Torah, and the Tzemach Tzedek rules that this child is also obligated to study on his own as soon as he is able to do so. We must invest great effort in this regard due to the great importance of studying while young, which guarantees that it will last like ink on new paper. This story teaches us the tremendous importance of teaching children Torah from a young age. What they learn at that age remains with them forever. There are some people, I want to talk about people. There's a mindset which says, why should I educate my children as Jews? Why should I teach them Judaism? I'm Jewish, my spouse is Jewish, our parents are Jewish. My kids, listen, let them grow up, let them get older, then they'll make their own choices in life, what they see fit. It's a terrible thing. You have an opportunity to teach and to educate your children the path of their parents and their grandparents, their great-grandparents, all the way back to the Jews in the desert and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It's a 4,000-year history. Why would you take that away from them? Give it to them when they're young. And there's an importance to giving it to them when they're young. That stays with them forever, as we'll see. We'll more elaborate on this more soon. Says the Rebbe, this is how Hasidic education is done in practice. Even before a child is old enough to distinguish between good and bad, they are taught to have boundless Hasidic enthusiasm about holy matters. The child is taught to take everything they learn to heart and to implement it in practice. The Rebbe often stressed the importance of educating children from a very young age, even giving infants a Hasidic education. What does that mean? So there's a story to illustrate that. Mrs. Esther Sternberg tells a personal story that took place with the Rebbe's wife, Rebbetzin Chaya Mushka, of righteous memory. On the 20th of Av is one of the Jewish months, 1981, Mrs. Sternberg was in the hospital after giving birth to a baby. The Rebbetzin called Mrs. Sternberg to ask how she was doing, and among other things, asked her if she would be listening to the Rebbe, to her husband, to the Rebbe's talk that evening. Mrs. Sternberg explained that there was a phone number to dial in and hear the address live, and she would do so from her hospital bed. When the Rebbetzin heard that she could hear the talk live, she told her to place the receiver next to the newborn, so the baby could also hear the Rebbe speak, explaining it is so important that children hear Chassidus. Mrs. Sternberg was amazed at these words. Her child was only a newborn, but she promised the Rebbetzin that she would do it. She placed the receiver next to the child's ear, and to her amazement, the baby remained calm during the entire broadcast of the Farbrengen, the Hasidic gathering. The Rebbetzin was teaching Mrs. Sternberg that even newborns need to be enveloped in an atmosphere of holiness. Okay, separating good from bad. The Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, continues the Rebbe, concludes with a teaching of Rabbi Meir, Acher's student. Rabbi Meir said, this is going to explain how Rabbi Meir was learning from Elisha ben Avuya in the first place. He said, don't look at the vessel, but rather at what it contains. There are new vessels that are filled with old wine, which is very precious, and old vessels that do not even contain new wine, which is not really so precious. Grape juice, basically. This explains how Rabbi Meir was able to learn from Acher. He did not look at the vessel, but at what it contained. He learned from the Torah Acher contained from his youth, Torah that stayed with him forever because it was like ink on new paper. However, Rabbi Meir's approach of learning Torah, even from Acher, is certainly not suitable for everyone. The Talmud teaches, the verse states, for the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek Torah from his mouth, for he is a messenger, a malach of God. This verse teaches us that if the teacher is similar to an angel of God, you should seek Torah from his mouth. But if the teacher is not pure like an angel, do not seek Torah from his mouth. Rabbi Meir was special. As the Talmud explains, Rabbi Meir found a pomegranate, he ate the fruit and discarded the peel. This is the same concept as Rabbi Meir's teaching quoted earlier, don't look at the vessel, but at what it contains. The sages say a very odd statement about Rabbi Meir. And we just read it. Rabbi Meir rimen matzah toichei ocha klipos zorak. Rabbi Meir one time, one second. The sages tell us that Rabbi Meir one time found a pomegranate. Okay. He ate the fruit and discarded the peel. This is recorded in the Talmud, one of the greatest Jewish texts of wisdom ever written. It's a ginormous volume of books. It's called the Sea of Talmud. The depth is unfathomable. And the sages of the Talmud wrote every single thing with a particular reason. There was wisdom behind each word. Rabbi Meir found a pomegranate, he ate the fruit, he threw away the peel. Everybody does that. You eat fruit, you eat the fruit, you throw away the peel. I mean, if it's the fruit that the peel is not edible. You eat an orange, you take out the orange, you throw away the peel. What's the big deal? Why is this so important to know? Everybody does this. The reason the sages wrote this in the Talmud and recorded it for the generations is to show us something about Rabbi Meir's character, his personality, his identity, his being. This statement that Rabbi Meir found a pomegranate, he ate the fruit and threw away the peel, it personified who he was. This small little thing that happened, the sages felt it was important to record because this is who Rabbi Meir is. He is somebody who takes out the inside and he benefits from it, and he ignores the outside. He ignores the external shell. Exactly what we see with Acher. He learned from the Torah that he learned that Acher had learned in his youth, and he had the ability to discern that and to not get confused and not mix it up with other things. The outside, the kalipa, the shell, the peel, he ignored it. He wasn't a practicing Jew. He was on the contrary. He was able to divide the two. That's something I'm not interested in. I could peel it away, and this I'm very much interested in. Let me learn from it. Let me take from it. This is not for public consumption. This pomegranate is not for most of us to eat. It's Rabbi Meir's pomegranate. Let him eat it. For us, we should try to learn Torah from people who live by the Torah. That what they practice, what they preach. In other words. Section C, soul rectification, page 9. The Talmud recounts a fascinating saga that took place in the heavenly court when Elisha ben Avuya died, and how the sages in this world influenced the heavenly decision. This is a fascinating story. Elisha ben Avuya passes away. What do you think happened? Let's see. Source 8. When Acher died, the heavenly court proclaimed that he would not be punished in purgatory, but he would also not enter paradise, heaven. Or in Hebrew, Gan Eden, Olam Haba, the world to come. He wouldn't be punished because he studied Torah, and that merit protected him. But he also wouldn't enter into paradise because he had sinned. So when the soul of a righteous individual comes to the next world, goes straight to paradise. However, one who has sinned during their lifetime needs to undergo a soul cleansing in purgatory before they can proceed to paradise. When Acher arrived at the heavenly court, there was a dilemma. There was a problem. There was an obstacle. There was an issue. What was that? He couldn't go to purgatory because he had studied so much Torah in such a real way. Its merit protected him. On the other hand, he also couldn't enter paradise with the stains of his sins intact. Thus, he remained stranded between two worlds, neither here or there. In Yiddish, we'd say, nish dahin or nish daher. Says the Rebbe, says the Talmud. Further, Rabbi Meir said, better he be punished in purgatory and then be able to go to the next world. You hear this? Rabbi Meir, his faithful student, and even though he was who he was, Acher, what he did. Rabbi Meir, like he said, he's the pomegranate, he throws away the peel. He says, in his opinion, it's better that he be punished and suffer the consequences of his sins to purge him of the negative effects and the way the sins tainted his soul, so that he should be able to benefit from going to paradise, to the next world. Rabbi Meir continued, he said, when I pass away, I will request this in heaven. When you see smoke rising from Acher's grave, you will know that he has entered purgatory. And like he said, so it happened. When Rabbi Meir passed, smoke rose from Acher's grave, showing that Rabbi Meir's request was granted. So Rabbi Meir felt it was better for his teacher Acher to go through the cleansing of purgatory, because after this he'd be allowed to go into heaven. Rabbi Yochanan said, is this greatness, to burn your teacher? Is this the only solution? He was one of us, a Torah scholar. We cannot save him. If we grab his hand, who will drag him away from us? He has a different approach. He shouldn't go through any suffering. He was a holy sage. We can't help him. He continued, when I pass away, said Rabbi Yochanan, the smoke will cease to rise from his grave, to let you know that he was released from purgatory and brought to paradise. Indeed, when Rabbi Yochanan passed, the smoke rising from Acher's grave ceased. Right about the pause. One of Rabbi Yochanan's eulogizers said in his eulogy, even the guards of the heavenly gates can't stand before you, our teacher. For the gatekeeper of purgatory couldn't stop Rabbi Yochanan from taking Acher out of purgatory. The Rebbe, we're going to end off with this. Page 10. Elisha ben Avuya studied Torah during his youth, ink on new paper, so it stayed with him forever. Eventually, this also brought about his rectification. The Talmud relates that the rectification of Acher was completed by Rabbi Yochanan. They said about Rabbi Yochanan that even the gatekeeper of purgatory couldn't stop him when he came to remove Acher from there, as we just learned. It is clear that Acher's rectification was in the merit of the Torah that he studied, and especially because he studied when he was young, ink on new paper. Do you see what's going on here? This is incredible. Two things, two main key points here, two takeaways. Make this practical and relevant to us. The importance of Jewish education. Educating Jews, particularly Jewish kids, particularly within the particularly young Jewish kids, teaching them Torah. Teaching your kids Torah. You teach them when they're young, it stays with them forever. And not only does it stay with them forever, even if they forget a little bit here and there, the effect that has on their lives is insane. You see from the story of Elisha ben Avuya that he learned Torah in his youth, and he strayed from the path of Torah. He strayed from the path of Judaism. He was what people call an unfaithful Jew. And even after he passed away, the merit of his Torah study protected him in a crazy way. So don't wait for your kids to be 30, 50, 18, 10. When they're little kids, teach them. You don't know enough? Go learn. Join the classes every week. You learn more. You teach your kids. Teach them Torah values, Jewish values. Educate them with performing mitzvahs. So important. The mitzvahs are the things that kept the Jewish people alive for the past 3,500 plus years. 3,500 years. it's the mitzvahs. It's the mitzvahs and the Torah, the practices and the observance of the practices and the learning of the practices and the values is what kept us alive and keeps us alive and will keep us alive. And the second point is to copy Rabbi Meir. Now, don't copy Rabbi Meir and try to learn from people who don't seem good on the outside, but taking it a twist a little bit, how to look at another Jew. Hear me out. How to look at another Jew. Eat the fruit, throw away the peel. I'll say it one more time. When you're looking at another Jew, the way you relate to another person, eat the fruit, throw away the peel. What's going on the outside, the externalities, the way the person talks, the way the person acts, the way the person talks to you, the way the person reacts to you, the way the emotions the person shows you, the words the person says to you, all these things, referring specifically to a negative sense, when all these things are coming at you in a negative way, it's very easy to say, I don't like this person. Get out of my life. I don't want to talk to you. Throw away the peel. Take the peel, throw it in the trash. Practically, what does it mean? Ignore it. Look past it. See that deep down in this person is a beautiful, rich, holy, pure, precious soul. This Jewish soul shines. Okay, over the years, since the person was a baby, they got covered over by stuff and muck and garbage, and it's being thrown in your face now. And it hurts. I understand, for sure. It hurts. But try at the same time to look and notice that there's something very, very precious here. There's a diamond. It's covered in mud. But that's not the diamond's problem. You gotta just rub away the mud a little bit. You gotta scrub the dirt off. And you'll see the precious shining gem that's lying underneath. Wishing you all well. Have a great rest of your week. Have a good Shabbos. And wishing you a ktiva v'chatima tova l'shana tova u'masuka, a good and sweet. You should be written and sealed for the good with a good and sweet year. This is the traditional pre-Rosh Hashanah reading. Over and out.